I think I think we should start. Our first keynote speaker is Randall Auxier from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. And I think I can personally introduce Randy because he's my advisor, actually. I sat in almost every class at the Southern Illinois University. It was my fortune to have his classes, my first class about American idealism, which was about Royce, Josiah Royce. And I was fascinated by his brilliance in terms of not just philosophical thought, but also his personal characters, such as perseverance and also endurance and that kind of things. He was very clever and he was very honest in many aspects. And I guess I learned a lot from him, not just the philosophical thought, but also our attitude, how to deal with the situations in the world which is happening all the time around us. So today's talk will be about Susan Langer, one of the proponents of the sign language or symbolic logic. And the title is The Virtues in the Virtual, Susan Langer's Projections and the Digital World. Join me welcoming Randy's keynote speech this morning.
Thanks. Oh, there we are. I wonder if this works. Thank you, Chung Ho. Everybody here calls him Tim, and I never called you Tim. Okay. All right. Thank you for that introduction, and thanks to the organizers of this really interesting conference. I've learned an awful lot from yesterday's proceedings, and I expect to learn more today. And also, this is my first trip to South Korea, and so it's really beautiful. It's kind of quiet, but maybe that's just this spot in this city. I'm promised a city tour tomorrow, so maybe I'll go somewhere where people are yelling and screaming. I don't know. All right, so what I'm going to do this is going to happen quickly. I think that some of you will probably have some difficulty following it because the language that I use to do what I'm going to do is the language of process philosophy. And sometimes the vocabulary and the usage of the language is a little bit unusual, but I will be happy to make available this presentation to anyone who wants to look a little more closely. Also, because process philosophy is something that's not familiar to a lot of people, the ideas could well be new to you in terms of the way that they are framed, the way of talking. What process philosophers do is they take time to be the most important thing to understand. And so everything we talk about, all the ideas, all the concepts, get recast in terms of their temporality and in terms of time. And so what I'm going to do today is just a piece that I think and I hope will contribute something to the purpose of this conference regarding how it is that the creation of values interacts with our capacity to be creative itself. And I think I'll tie that eventually to the issues of AI and robotics and the metaverse, and in particular, augmented reality. All right, do I just push the green button? So is this screen supposed to be on? Because this screen is not on. It would be nice if it were. But I don't need it right this moment, but in a moment I will. Let me tell you just a word or two about Suzanne Langer. She was the student of Alfred North Whitehead. She lived from 1895 to 1967. That was 1985. The book that I'm most interested in today was published in 1967. It is her book, Mind, an Essay in Human Feeling, Volume 1. There were eventually 3 volumes in this trilogy of books. In my opinion, this book was decades ahead of its time, and it still has a great deal to teach us about how we could and should think about the kinds of issues that the people at this conference think about. The way of recasting mind in terms of process and time is something that we're still not very good at doing, but Langer was very good at doing it. And so, with that said, in particular, I'm going to be focusing on an argument in chapter 4 of this first volume, in which Langer makes the argument that if you want to understand how the human mind works, you need to pay attention to art, to the way that we create art. And the reason is that the creation of art, when we're doing it, it moves us beyond the habitual use of mind in navigating the world. And since we can become familiar with our unconventional use of mind in the creation of art, it makes us better able to see how mind works in its practical daily functions. Now, when I say mind, I don't just mean brain. I think that the reduction of mind to brain, it's tempting, but it's a mistake. We could learn everything there was to know about the brain, and we still wouldn't understand everything there is to know about mind. I do not take a strong position about mind-brain identity or anything of that kind because I don't think we know enough right now to take strong positions about that. My guess is that the entire body is a mind, and the brain may be its processing unit, but even that I'm not certain of. I think possibly we process things in our hearts as well, and of course I use that metaphorically. All right, here's a picture of Langer. She's smiling at her book. Because it was a good book. So I don't know whether these things are going to come on or not. I hope they are because I could look at you instead of turning around and looking at the screen if that would come on. Were they on yesterday? Okay. I'm speaking of the monitors here. So in any case, one of the things that we need to do in order to understand thoroughly how to approach the very complicated problems that I'm going to be trying to take on today is we've got to keep art, science, and nature together. Nature is the generic term that I'm going to use to keep art and science together. Obviously, they are different activities, but both of them have something to do with the larger idea of nature. So I also want the inquiry to be entirely empirical, which is to say no non-empirical strands to tie together art and mind and nature and science. These are all things that human beings do, and we use the time that we live, the lived time that we experience in order to do both art and science. And in a way, that's what nature is. It's the time that forms the ground of our activity. There may be more to time than the ground of our activity. In fact, there almost surely is more to time than that, but it's at least that. And so whatever it is we do it with the employment of time. Now, music is the art form that most directly makes use of time. Because what you do when you make music is you take the time that's passing and you organize virtually above that time a flow of sounds, usually tones, but music has developed away from tonality at this point. And so the point is that we take the time that's going to elapse anyway, and we organize a series of sounds along the top of and illustrating the passage of that time. So music virtualizes time. So when you create music, what you do is it's pure time. You can't do music in no time whatsoever. But there's lots of different kinds of time that music uses. In particular, you can imagine a melody in your head right now. You can speed it up and you can slow it down. Some song that your mother sang to you or whatever. Hear it, row, row, row your boat, whatever it is they sing in other parts of the world besides the one I live in. You can speed that up in your imagination. This is your aural imagination. You can speed it up, you can slow it down. There's a limit as to how fast you can go and still have it distinct, and there's a limit as to how slow you can go and still have it distinct. But in the use of the mind in that way, you are virtualizing time. You are taking the time that it takes to imagine that melody, and you are condensing it and you are expanding it when you slow the melody down and when you speed the melody up so that it takes less time. But the lived time that passes has some sort of analogous relationship to the imagined time that you use in order to imagine that melody. You don't have to play it, you don't have to actually hear it, you have the power to do this. All right, so that comes from our precognitive experience. That ability to do that. You became conscious of what you were doing because I asked you to do it, but you do it all the time. Well, probably something like it all the time. You just find that there's music in your head. Are you remembering it? Sometimes. Are you making it up? Sometimes. Are you forecasting something that you might sing in a few moments? Sometimes, right? If you're in the shower or something like that. But these processes yield upon reflection all sorts of dynamic formalizations that serve as genuine reasons why some vibratings of the world process that's unfolding right now do settle within our bodies. Because there's lots of vibratings of the world that are time that do not end up in our bodies the way that that melody is in your body, right? So some things settle, as the world passes, some things settle into our bodies and some things do not. There is such a thing in actuality as aesthetic value, and it can be formalized in many different ways without destroying the experience itself. I could write down the melody in musical notation, and it wouldn't destroy the experience of having had it in my imagination. All right. The stuff that settles into our bodies from the world-time process, that stuff is already valuable. Our bodies value it. Now, that doesn't mean that you could sell it, although maybe, if you can find a way to commodify it, it doesn't mean you could sell it. It's valuable in the sense that our bodies have already, through their training and through their movements and through their practices, have decided that this is going to be kept in the body and that isn't. So all kinds of things are happening right now that aren't going to be kept in your body. But there are a few things that are happening right now, hopefully some of what I'm saying, that will be kept in your body. All right. Now, what happens when art, like music that you're listening to, is out there, outside your body, and ends up inside your body, so that you can remember a melody after you've heard it, for example, and you can imagine it in your mind? That thing is in you. It got in there somehow. This can be described in a lot of different ways. Music comes in through more than just your ears. It comes in through your entire body. But the how of how music comes into your body is one issue, whereas the preservation and reproduction of that experience by your body is a different process. So with settling in the body, there's the dynamic joining of one history, the history of your body, as whatever processes bring it to this moment, right? One history with a physical route. That's the physicality of the sound that's about, and the same thing is true when you use your eyes. I just think it's easier to understand this if you think about music. If you start thinking about what you see, things get really complicated in a hurry. But if you think about what you hear, there's a sort of a purity to that as an example that enables people to understand a little more clearly. So what happens is that there's energy all out in the room, and the music is contributing some value to the dynamism of your lived experience. It's vivifying your body. It's intensifying your presence in this moment in the experience. That's why we like music, for this reason. That's going to really help. Okay, thank you, guys. And so sometimes you are hearing things that you don't want to hear, like maybe an annoying street evangelist who tells you that you need to repent, or maybe just a lost traveler asking for directions. Most of this stuff comes and goes pretty quickly, and it doesn't leave much of a trace in the body. But music has this power to stay. Some of it has to do with the pattern, the organization, but that's not the point. The point is that it has this capacity to stay in our bodies. So that comes in the various doors. If you think of the ears as the side doors of the body, it might be a primitive or meaningless noise, or it might be a Beethoven symphony. But the point is it comes in and has sometimes the power to stay. For example, some of you will be old enough to remember when we used to write on the blackboard with chalk. You know what that sounds like, right? You know what it sounds like if somebody does this, too. And you don't even want to think about it because the sound of fingernails on the blackboard is, right? So think about this power of staying that certain kinds of sounds and certain kinds of sights have in your body. That is how I am using the word symbol. It's the stuff that stays. Because what has happened is that your body has formed a complex feeling of what that's like, and you carry it with you everywhere. That's why you can remember, but you can also reproject what it was like to hear that into this present moment. You can anticipate it. If I were to walk up to a blackboard with my hand like this, right? You're already going, don't do that, don't do that. And sometimes you can see a sound about to happen that hasn't happened yet, and you could react as if it has already happened. So somebody drops a plate, and it hasn't even hit the ground yet. and you already go, right? So the point is, this is anticipatory as well as something that exists in the present and something that exists in memory. So the point is, it's this symbol that you carry around you. You have the power to reproject it using the time that's passing right now. We're going to do some more of this in a minute. The point is that when we join a sound that's part of the world process to our bodies, we create a feeling complex. That feeling complex is a symbol. That's the way I'm using the word symbol. All right, here's something Langer says. A genuine symbol can most readily, notice the yellow, okay, most readily originate where some object, sound, or act is provided which has no practical meaning. This is an important insight. To form a symbol that you can then reuse, it's better if you're not taking in the feeling complex in order to act on it immediately, right? So this has a practical use. I wouldn't want it around unless it had a practical use. On the other hand, a melody, not so much. So she says, yet, so this feeling tends to elicit an emotional response and thus hold one's undivided attention. She does not mean undivided literally, because your attention is always divided. But what she means is that it has you. It has you in its grip. So if somebody starts singing right this moment out there, everything in you is going to turn toward that and away from this. Right? Why? Well, it's got an emotional sort of grab. And part of the capacity to reproject that symbol, which is the feeling complex, part of the capacity to do that has to do with emotion, which, as the brain scientists have taught us, is the most powerful thing that's going on in our bodies. Okay, so thus holds one undivided attention. But the music that has interrupted the continuum, which would otherwise be silence, whereby our experience is carried along with the general flux, which is what we do most of the time. We just allow ourselves to be carried along with the flux. And the moment the music appears, we almost cannot help relinquishing the more generalized temporal process for the specific intensified thing that the music offers. Okay, with that said, you're all thinking about music now, I hope. The symbols you carry in your body, both invited and uninvited symbols, because sometimes you see things you wish you hadn't seen, sometimes you hear things you wish you hadn't heard. That doesn't keep you from carrying it in your body as a symbol. The symbols you carry are not distinctly individualized. They can be mixed, recombined, and projected in any present situation. When you take conscious control of this process, you become more aware of your default settings for projection. Because as I'm going to show you, you're projecting this right now as well. But since it's practical, you're not very much aware of it. But here's the present room. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to use your imagination to see this room. So this room is in blue and brown. I want you to put it in pink and purple in your imagination. Right now. It's easier if you close your eyes for just a second. There it is, right? Because what happens is if you keep your eyes open, there's a little war between what you're trying to do with your power of projection and what's coming in, right? Close your eyes for just a moment. Make this whole room pink and purple. It's easy. You know how to do this. Part of the reason you know how to do it is that you've been sitting in front of computers all your life, and you know you can get a virtual version of that same thing by just hitting a series of buttons. How about your mother's cooking now? Make it here. Imagine how it smelled. The whole house as you stepped in the door. Right? You're remembering that. That's the past, right? It could be here now, but it would require quite a series of steps. In my case, quite a series, since my mother's no longer with us. But it's there. It's there now. It's there intensely. You can project it now. So then there's a time of peace. Let's call this futural, shall we? Right? most of what you're going to be imagining if I ask you to use this power of projection to imagine a time of peace is going to be taking away things that are presently happening and just trying to imagine the world without them. That's the easiest way. Or you could imagine it like, I don't know, the prophet Isaiah did when he wrote about the holy mountain of the Lord, where, I don't know, lions and lambs would sit down together, right? If that has an existence, it has to be understood as future because it's not a part of the past so far as we know, right? How do you get to imagining a future? Well, part of it is that you reach into the feeling complex and you rearrange it. But you're also using the present time that's passing. You're combining these. So, your symbol complex, this feeling that you carry around with all of these past experiences, all of these present experiences, and all of these anticipations, this feeling complex is mainly presentational, which is to say you're not conscious of most of it. You're not thinking about it. You're just doing it. But it includes, because you are human, an impressive array of what are called discursive symbols by Langer. These symbols and their systematic relations are derived from generalizing over many presentational experiences and recognizing structural patterns that these experiences have in common. So your conceptual, your linguistic, your mathematical, your geometrical, your logical powers, all of these are generalizations of patterns that are found in your presentational symbol complex that you carry around in your body. So some people are good at doing math in their heads. We were talking about that last night. Do you know that the equation that you gave, the way to figure out 8 times whatever it was, is exactly the way I do it too? You take the easy problem, then you subtract, right? Whatever it is. I can't remember what the exact example was, but the point is that all of it is really the same thing in the sense that you are picking out, selecting structural features of your feeling complex, and you feel the numbers before you think them. How do I do this? And then you start doing it, and then you become conscious of what's going on. Okay, so as the symbol complex tends toward discursivity, which is this structural tendency, what happens is it takes on a more rigid structure. It requires more discipline of our power of projection to use the linguistic, the conceptual. As the effort moves away from concepts and toward what we commonly call imagination, I mean this in just the ordinary sense of imagination, as we move in that direction, then what happens is the discipline of discursive projection is retained, but the process of selecting aspects from our amalgamated feeling complex is less rule-bound. If you could not think discursively, you would not have the same powers over your emotional and other non-discursive feeling symbols as you do. It's the discipline of discursive thinking that enables you to, that empowers you to choose and select from among your less rigid feelings and to recombine them. We call people who are really, really good at that artists. So, when you remember, perceive, or imagine the future, and here we come to the point, you can draw forms from your full complex. It's not just what you learned in school in terms of math, for example. You can draw from the full complex. This activity is usually driven by practical concerns, and thus we form our habits of projection around what we have to do and around what we commonly do, what we do most of the time. Some people cultivate the power of altering this, though. Artists do that. They aren't the only ones who do it. Inventors do it too. But some people cultivate the power of altering their habitual projection. And they're asking the question, what if? What if I do this? What if I do that? And they are anticipating a possible result. So R.G. Collingwood actually says that's all there is to art. Since he's Da Vinci, all Da Vinci has to do is imagine the Mona Lisa, and the work, the artistic work, is done. It doesn't matter whether he ever paints it. This is a very controversial position. I don't really agree with it. But I see his point. His point is that when you have done the disciplined imagining work, the rest of it is technique. And he says art doesn't have any technique in it. Langer is horrified by this. She says, of course it does. I'm with her on this. But I think that Collingwood makes an incredibly important point when he gets you to recognize that when you've done the disciplined imaginative work, the art has been done. All right, so technique is required for what I'm calling artistic synthesis. And artistic synthesis is what happens when you take your memories, your present experience, and your anticipation of the future, and you put it into an envisagement, and then figure out how to bring it into some more embodied kind of reality. So technique, so that process I'm calling artistic synthesis. Langer didn't have that word, but she didn't notice it exactly. Here's how you do it. This is how we all do it. 3 points. The range of freedom that you have in developing techniques for your projections is your capacity for learning. That's exactly what it is. It's your range of freedom. That's your capacity for learning. Second, your capacity for envisagement grows as your learning proceeds. It can get bigger as you learn. In fact, it does. And third, your capacity for bringing what you envisage into a medium in which it can be shared with others is your level, not you level, your level of skill, ranging from beginners to masters. The child's picture of the house and mommy and daddy, or mommy and mommy, or daddy and daddy, whatever, is the beginner, and Leonardo is the master. But it's the same thing. So together, these 3 capacities, learning, envisagement, and skill, define our use of what I'm calling the full symbolic feeling complex. It's a power of selection and bringing into reality, if you want to call it that, whatever it is we imagine. All humans do this when they are awake. You're doing it right now. That's how you're understanding what I'm saying. It's anticipation, it's envisagement, it's the use of present time. If I talk too fast, you can't do it. If I talk too slow, you can't do it. I have to do it in accordance with what you need to hear in order to understand. Most of the values that are peculiarly human values depend on the way we use our full feeling complex. The use of the complex is our virtual world. So I am now going to use the word virtual in a way you are not used to. You carry around in your body everything you can do right now, right? It's there. Through the power of projection, skill, technique, this capacity of envisagement, you can stand up from your chair and walk out that door. You have to create a virtual version of this room in order to navigate that, and you carry it in your body. That's what it means to know how to do it, right? Okay, so you have to use the passage of real time in order to bring this into the world. The key question for the purpose of this conference, how do we increase our range of freedom for developing techniques? In other words, how do we find the virtues in our capacity of projection, of projecting a virtual world? How do we do it more freely? And the answer is this. This is how you learn to do it more freely. You play. What Langer says is if men's minds were essentially playful, they could have no uneasy conscience at their respite from work. That's a quote from John Dewey that she's using. Because you feel like if you're playing, you should be doing something else, right? So she continues, young dogs and young children to whom play is a necessity have no such conscience. Only people who feel that play displaces something more vital can disapprove of it. Otherwise, if the bare necessities were taken care of, work in itself could command no respect. And we would play with all the freedom in the world if practical work and sheer enjoyment were our only 2 alternatives. Right? Think about that next time you're playing. So, every human thing can be misused. When you increase your range of freedom, you increase your capacity for doing the wrong thing as surely as you increase your capacity for doing the right thing. How you employ the feeling complex and increase your range of freedom in projecting it. How you play makes all the difference to what kinds of habits you form for projecting. You can project evil as surely as you can project good. If you play in such a way as to develop the range for your capacity to project evil, everything in the world starts looking evil. If you develop your capacity for the values that are more like the ones you choose, then it turns out that your power of projection gets used in ways that, in the long run, you would probably prefer. So, with that said, the problem of augmented reality. So this is going to be my last point. This is Louis Rosenberg, one of the inventors of augmented reality, and he is really worried about what we do, what happens when we put on those glasses. He's afraid that we lose our bearings. Now, he could certainly be right, but we lose our bearings through our own power of projection, not through the addition of a virtual icon to what we're seeing. People who are likely to misuse their power of projection because of the way they play, right? You see where this is going, can't you? People who misuse their power of projection because of the way they play. I'm talking about what they watch on television, their first-person shooter video games. I believe that they are developing exactly the range of freedom that is likely to undermine their own values. I think we should be very, very careful how we play because it's the rehearsal of the use of our very power of projection itself. Augmented reality is just one more work of art that's out there that you might take into your body. It's not doing any harm in and of itself, so I must disagree. There is no reality, Louis, that is somehow not already a part of our power of projection. We're using our full feeling complex. We're projecting it in one way rather than another. The way we project it shows you our habits and it shows you our purposes. All right, with that said, I'm going to just say thank you.
Thank you, Randy, for making us terrified early in this morning.
Use it well.
Any questions or comments?
Good morning, Randy.
Good morning,
thank
Rosa.
you for your presentation. I was delightfully, listening your presentation. It just gave me some thoughts about like metaverse. In these days, there's a lot of cases in metaverse and where the sexual assault or sexually inappropriate behaviors happening to the users. So there are some arguments that we should like set up some sort of rules or ethics guideline for the metaverse. And like for your from your insight, like what should we do? Should we not play at all in the metaverse, or should we just set up some strict guideline to guide us?
Well, I'm not sure that limiting our freedom to do this is likely to be effective. So yeah, there it is. I wanted to go to the next to the last slide, the one I skipped over. See if I can get there. This one. Of course, that's what you're asking about. Louis Rosenberg is worried that the metaverse makes reality disappear, right? He's also worried about our misuse of it. And here's what I would say. In order to use it, you have to use the actual time that's passing, right? You're not going to get away from that. Now let's think about how we use our time, right? Would you want to pass ethics standards or requirements that say you have to work 8 hours a day? That sounds reasonable to me, right? But would you want to pass a law or create a rule that says you shouldn't play? That wouldn't be good. All right, so obviously the answer lies somewhere in between. If you make it illegal, people will find a way to do it. People want to be free. They do. They want to be free to use their time the way they see fit. What John Dewey says, and this is really my answer to your question, you are responsible for the use of your time, right? And you should be responsive to time's possibilities in the use of it. He says, don't beat yourself up if you find yourself imagining something that you ought not do. Don't get angry at yourself. Because you don't have to bid that thought to linger. You can let it pass on its way with all the other thoughts. He says, but if you decide to keep it, to let that thought linger, fantasies you ought not have, things that now you're responsible for your power of projecting it. You become responsible when you invest it with time. So I would say that in the same way, I just generalized your question out of existence because obviously there are things we shouldn't do and things we should do. But all of it is how we use our time, right? And what I would say is that if we play responsibly, and I now mean sort of like those commercials we have in the United States that say drink responsibly, which it's, I mean, anybody who doesn't hear the irony in that, it's like, but there's the encouragement of play in the words drink responsibly. I would say play responsibly. And if you play responsibly, what you'll discover is that your need, what Langer calls the necessity for play, gets fulfilled, and it can get fulfilled with things that are perfectly ethical and that are fun. You don't have to do the bad stuff, and you don't have to bid that bad projection to stay. You can let it go. I don't know if there's any way we can keep human beings from having the bad projections, but I think we can encourage them not to bid that fantasy to stay.
Okay. I'm afraid we have just one more short question or comments.
Sorry. Oh, I apologize immediately. It's not I look forward to talking to you about it further. It's not a short question or comment, but this is great. I find it very stimulating, but it seems to me that art is wholly inadequate to provide the basis for what the rational mind is capable of. So how could it possibly be that the things we hear in music, smell in cooking, see in rooms are the basis for or somehow what principally catalyze mathematical activity? Is mathematical activity right out of the box is infinite. It deals with infinite structures. A single page of a new result in analysis. How could that possibly relate directly to art? Art seems to me simple compared to that stuff. So I love it, but I'm very skeptical.
Have you ever been to St. Louis? That's where I live.
I've been there.
Do you think they could make that arch without mathematics? The finest piece of public art in the world? Is that not mathematics? Is it not art? All you're telling me is that discursive symbols are related to presentational feeling. And the infinity of structure is true of both, not just of one or the other.
Well, I don't know how the arch got built, but it seems to me
there was math involved.
Yes, but not in the artists that are creating a painting, or not in Rodin's
Have you ever
sculptures.
studied perspective in Renaissance painting? You think that's not math?
Whenever you manipulate things in the world, you're obviously making use of indirectly some mathematics in the physics, but you're not actually rationally doing mathematics when you make a sculpture. Or
I think you should try to paint something really, really good.
I can't paint because I'm too busy trying to do the rational symbolic stuff.
I think your question demonstrates that.
Okay.
So.
Is that it? Okay. Yeah, I'm afraid we just thank you, Randy, for your wonderful presentation, and we should turn to our second speaker, who is Takayuki Kanda. Kanda, are you there? Takayuki,
Yes,
are you there?
hello.
Yeah,
Good morning.
yeah. Let me introduce Kanda, Takayuki Kanda. Takayuki Kanda is a professor in informatics at Kyoto University, Japan. He is also a visiting group leader at ATR, Intelligent Robotics and Communication Laboratories, Kyoto, Japan. He received his bachelor in engineering. I don't know if I'm saying correctly, but management in engineering and PhD degree in computer science from Kyoto University. He is one of the starring members of communication robot project at ATR. He has developed a communication robot, RoboBee, and applied it in daily situations such as peer tutor at elementary school and a museum exhibit guide, something like that. His research interests includes human-robot interaction, interactive humanoid robots, and field trials. And his title for today's talk is Social Robots in Public Space. Please join me welcoming Takayuki Kanda.
So yeah, good morning. And I mean today, sorry, I'm not able to be there. I mean physically, but I mean I'm very happy to give a talk here. I mean with this great opportunity. Okay, so I mean my talk is about social robots in public space, and my talk is more from engineering background. So we try to create, I mean, some nice robot. In the middle, we face with maybe some problems, so I'd like to share it with you. So yeah, I mean, I hope robots, particularly social robots, will be everywhere in our daily life. I mean, particularly at semi-public space. I mean, robot can do many useful tasks like physical service, like carrying, bringing, delivering, or information providing. Presence. Just having robot be there, we would feel the environment is safe and enjoyable. Already, people start to believe that many of human works will be replaced by robots and AI. So this is kind of the expected coming future. But to start this kind of research, I mean, I'd like to first share with the importance of real-world research. On the contrary, this is something we tried in the beginning in a laboratory setting. We developed communication robot or interactive robot. I mean, we can talk, we can touch, we can show something, and I mean, robot respond, and we can enjoy interacting with it. This is one discussion. We're in this kind of simple, quiet environment. Computer vision, speech recognition seems to work well, and we can make such an interactive robot. We feel, oh, it's nice robot. Let's try to test it. So we try to think about a couple of possible applications, and one of the applications we thought was, yeah, in elementary school in Japan, people don't speak English that much because there is no opportunity. So yeah, let robots speak English in elementary school. Is that reality? Yeah, it's so noisy. It's chaotic. Many children gathered around the robot because they are curious. This is a reality, so it's completely different from what we saw in the laboratory. So this is one of the starting point for us to think about such real-world technique. Yeah, developing robot, often we thought about autonomous, single, independent robot. It's nice if we can do it, and maybe in the future it will be. But to study human-robot interaction, we need to think about this kind of reality. How to do it? At least for now, we think robot can be networked. So yeah, for user, it's still one robot in front of them. They are talking with the robot, but robot can be supported by many sensors or even human operator behind the system so that they can interact with more realistic, robot, and we can understand human-robot interaction and prepare useful technique for future use. One simple example here is about human tracking. For robot, even knowing human location is difficult task. And robot needed to identify people in couple of, or even 10-meter distance to approach and talk to, which is not so easy even now. But we developed this sensor network, so put many sensors on the ceiling of the environment. And in this case, shopping mall. So using such sensor network, we can cover quite broad environment with much robust, stable way. This example, we are tracking one target person here, surrounded by this red circle or red box. Stably, we can track this person from the entrance to another exit and going through many shops, big hallway space. We can even tell who is child, who is parents, from their height and group relationship. This kind of basic capability is developed. Of course, next step is about human-robot interaction, which we study a lot. So given now we have capability to identify people's location, can we, prepare a robot to nicely serve the people? One simple example here is the task in which robot give flyer to visitors. In Japan, this is quite common task, and even part-time workers do this task. So we thought maybe it's easy task for robot. If robot goes there, people will be happily receive flyer from robot, which was not true. Let me show what happened. Robot just move toward target person and extend its arm when target is nearby. Not so many people took it. Even sometimes people feel scared. Maybe this is not usual way of giving things to working people. So we notice it's not only about techniques, information robots should get, but interaction, how it acts toward people is also important. So we analyzed how people do this task. And this is shopping mall environment, so many people do this kind of flyer giving task. And we notice, there are differences. Some people are good at, some people are bad at. Let me show two extreme example. Left side is the person who is very successful. She is in 77.5% success, which is quite high successful ratio. You might find important characteristics of her behavior. She keeps moving around and approach to the target person, but not from frontal side, and extend her arm only nearby the target person. Right side, it's the opposite example. In similar environment, similar flyer, but she is so unsuccessful, only 12% success. What is the difference? Where she don't move, she keep extending her arm, waiting someone to take, and even pull her arm when target is nearby. Of course, we decided to learn from the behavior on the left side. With such behavior, it was much successful. Let me show. Wait a moment. So yeah, let me show. So this is robot behavior after implementing this, successful EVA behavior. So robot now approach from frontal side. It's robot, so it's a little bit unstable, but still, much better than the one I showed you before. So right side, you can see the graph comparing the two behaviors. First one, left side is the behavior I show you first. And just going straight and extend its arm, which was only kind of 30% success. While this, behavior model from human, successful person, it's 73% success, so much better and close to human behavior. So this is one example of such human-robot interaction. Importance of doing nice and maybe appropriate natural interaction. We study many of such behavior, like how human phone and let robot phone similarly, or locate its position, spatial formation, and let robot stand similar way, gaze behavior as well, etc. My point here, human-robot interaction is constructive approach to understand human interaction. If we can make a robot that interacts well, then we gain knowledge that could be also even applicable to us, human, how to interact well. Imagine that flyer giving behavior. Yeah, maybe if I'm asked to do that task, I think, I can follow this nice model and maybe more successful than doing flyer behavior. And let me skip many of the details, but combining those techniques, sensing technique, architecture integration, human-robot interaction, we developed many of successful service of social robot. And let me show two of the examples here. One is museum guide. So, yeah, in the museum, we let this kind of robot move around, approach to visitors, and use its gesture, point at some interesting spot, and talk about, yeah, this is the exhibit about something like, yeah, electrical bike, which is unusually 30 years ago. This is new engine. Yeah, people are quite happy about this kind of, robot guide. And in this specific study, 94% of visitors want to use it again. Another example here is information providing service. Coming back to shopping mall again. In this specific example, robot move around and give a map to visitors, and if they have a question, robot answer. And by the way, robot was partly teleoperated with our networked approach. In this example, we will see a person coming from right side of the video who is actually got lost, and moving toward wrong direction. They need to go opposite way.
どうぞ。ありがとう。どうしましたか？ APC の道案内やおすすめ情報を話せますよ。どこに行くんですか？コスモタワー。コスモタワーだね。コスモタワーはここからこっちなの？あっちへまっすぐ進んで、その先のところにあるよ。ありがとう。どういたしまして。
So this shows very interesting moment. By having robot, they notice, with only, they were even using a smartphone, but with smartphone, they didn't recognize robot gave such opportunity. This one I like very much. It's an interaction with a child. And again, robot is giving the directions.
APC の道案内やおすすめ情報を話せますよ。行きたい場所に合わせておすすめするね。どこに行くんですか？自動販売機。自動販売機。何これ？自動販売機だね。自動販売機はここから あっちへまっすぐ進んで、その先のエスカレーターのところを降りて、じゃあそこにあんねん。その先のところにあるよ。あるよ。ある。ありがとう。ありがとう。どういたしまして。楽しいこれ。
Well, people are very happy about this kind of robot. I'm also happy to see this kind of moment. I mean, when we ask, whether they'd like to use it again, yeah, large majority, something like 97, percent of people said, yeah, they'd like to use it again. Interestingly, when we asked, do you like to use robot or person for this kind of service? 66% of people said, they prefer service from robots rather than human. Why? They said, yeah, it's easy to access and novel. Yeah, novel is it's what we often hear from this kind of user of robots. But this easy to access. They don't like to bother human workers. But it's easy for them to ask robot. So this kind of things, similar service, but robot providing, in some sense, interestingly different service and help people. Where this kind of nice things are going, many people start to show positive attitude toward robot. But we also see difficulties, in some sense, ethical and societal issues. The most, difficult problem for us, still we are working on, is this robot abuse problem. Let me show one video here, couple of videos here. In this scene, robot was roving around. And when its motion course is blocked, it asks, please make a space for me. So, I know some people try doing this once or twice, but sometimes children are too curious and do this too much.
今はパトロール中なので前を開けてくださいね。
So in this case, they continued it for 19 minutes, and robot needed to ask 45 times, please make a space for me. Apparently it's too much. This is the situation in which their behavior escalated a little bit more. They started to use
無理ですね。あなたはバカですから。それしか言ってねえや。なあ、このおめえは勘違いだ。出てこい。おい、潰すでこのロボット。お前はな、アホです。お前な、なんで前を通りたいので静かにしろ。静かにしろよ、おい。こんなのおい、止まれ。
So they enjoy doing this kind of bad behavior together, and sometimes their behavior even escalated and started to be more physical abuse.
重いよ。やめて。助けて。助けて。誰か助けて。
Well, I don't think they try to break the robot, but it's kind of the rough play. So they enjoy doing this, but still I think this as kind of the playful things. But for us, for people who is watching this situation, it's not that nice. So the consequence is that by having robot, environment is not necessarily enjoyable, but in reality, some hard, but I mean, not comfortable in some sense. So we started to study this kind of situation. Why this happen? How to prevent? This is from the interview study. So we asked some of the children why they do. I mean, when we interview them, interestingly, most of them thought robot is more like human-like rather than just a machine. I mean, it can sense, it can understand. It's not hard robot like. Why then they do this? People said various reasons, like curiosity, enjoyment, and some people said, yeah, triggered by others. One person said to harm, it's a little bit too much, but I mean, majority is more like curiosity, enjoyment. Yeah, and yeah, as I said, I mean, more than half said, yes, robot perceive the harm. So they know it's harmful to the robot, still they enjoy doing this. It's already kind of the entrance of this abusive behavior. This is from our observation, analysis study. So we also analyze how this, abuse escalate. And we skip details, but what we found is, yeah, they escalate gradually. Child imitate other child behavior and try to do little bit bad behavior, even worse. They, continue this kind of escalation process. Two examples here. Left side, you will see blue arrow and red arrow. Blue is a child who started behavior first, then child with red arrow continue similar behavior. This will be so blue beat, then red beat. Right side is kicking behavior. Blue kick, then red kick. We often see this kind of pattern. And we notice, this evolves. Well, how to prevent? Still we are working. So what we found is only this solution for now. Let robot escape. Technically speaking, we developed simulation. So robot has basic simulation capability about this pedestrian behavior as a basic. When people come, how they go, and how many of them gather around the robot. In addition, we developed abuse model. So when child stay nearby the robot, how likely they start abusive behavior. We have a lot of data, so we developed statistical model, and what we found is, over time, they escalate. And when people come, 2 person, 3 person, it exponentially increase. If we see this kind of situation, with human, we of course feel, yeah, robot is alone, and one child is already running towards the robot. We can already predict. Maybe soon abuse could happen. Likewise, this simulation tells us. Yes. Yeah, in the simulation, this, circle with red, it's robot. And this is the child. This value is the risk. So robot is in 74%, 75%, likely to be abused. What happens if another child arrives? Well, this rapidly grow, and now each of them start to show this kind of risk. So 12% for each. So you can imagine if third person come, fourth person come, this grows a lot. We didn't give specific solution, but let robot find out how to do. Robot do many of simulation. Go here, go there, and find what is the best by itself. So now robot is moving toward his parent, who is waiting here. Statistically speaking, when child is with parent, they don't continue interaction so long. In reality here, it's true, this parent, took him and move away. So with this technique, anticipation technique with simulation, robot abuse was largely reduced. But still, we try to find out any better way, like convincing the child. Anyway, let me talk what we are working now. I mean, it's still ongoing project, but I'm happy to talk about it. I mean, we named this project to be Moral Interaction Project. At this moral interaction, we saw many of nice situations having robots in our society. And I mean, in the future, people predict or expect, yeah, robot will start to serve. Could be something like shopkeeper robot, security guard robot. I mean, many of such human roles. But given such abusive situation happened, is this really the true with current robot capability? Can we realize such future? If robot is alone without human attendance, can robot really do this kind of service? I mean, if we are there, humans are there, typically we behave better each other. I mean, in that sense, I mean, people morally behave in presence of a human peer. This is something like peer respect and peer pressure. So we don't harm other people, and I mean, we behave well. But if there is only a robot, can we behave better in presence of a robot? Can we respect the robot? I mean, maybe we need some technique. I mean, we hope to make some, series of techniques to make robot peer serving well for human, moral interaction, like, human peer. Starting point, we already noticed this is not that easy. This specific study shows us the difficulty. I mean, it is about propagation behavior. So what happens if, we see human behaving good? In this specific example, garbage picking behavior. So there is a garbage and garbage can, and person come and pick it up. Well, after seeing this kind of situation, we feel, oh, we should behave good. Below, this is corresponding to literature, but people are willing to pick up garbage after seeing this kind of behavior and also feel guilty if they don't pick up garbage. But what happens if they saw a robot picking up garbage? Just same behavior, but from some part mechanical robot. Well, their willingness doesn't increase and their guilty feeling of guilt even decreased. So yeah, there is no real peer pressure or observed here. We need something. And task. Human provide, human has a capability to do peer pressure and even human security guard. Yeah, they admonish. And if such security guard ask people, don't do this, people typically follow. But we notice this is not easy for me. This is, smoking at the non-smoking area. And the robot approached and said, please don't smoke. This person looked at robot and just ignored. They noticed. Still continue. In Japan, we have a problem about smartphone walking. In Japan, it's more crowded, so it's not so safe if people do smartphone walking. So we try to let robot stop doing this. Robot approach and ask, don't do it, just ignore. We notice this is also not that easy. For this, we again try to study from human behavior. Actually, we notice human guard change their behavior. Left side is the situation in which they do friendly approaching. So like offering some nice service. They just move straight rather slowly, while when they do admonition, they change their behavior, moving much, little bit faster, and they quickly change, turn their motion course and try to show up in front of the target person. We imitate this behavior into the robot again. So this shows how it works. Yeah, it moves, but in the middle, it turns its motion course and show up in front of the target person. This is the video from our field trial. So it shows this behavior. And yeah, with this, I mean, people much better listen to robot admonishment. So they stop smartphone working more when robot show this admonishment approach.
Sorry
are
for the
studying this
interrupt,
kind of-
Takayuki, but you have
Yes.
2 more minutes. To have
Yes,
more
yes.
minutes.
Yes.
Two more
Don't
minutes.
worry. Don't worry. So, I mean, combining this kind of technique, I mean, we are now studying how such moral interaction could serve in our real environment. This is from retail store. And retail store, there is shopkeeper. And we also put shopkeeper robot. Of course, only admonishing shopkeeper is terrible. So we let robot do friendly behavior and also admonishment behavior. Let me show how it works.
僕はロボビーです。このお店の案内ができます。何をお探しですか？ガチャガチャですね。ガチャガチャでしたら。
ガチャガチャでしたら
あちらにあります。
あっち
ここまで案内しましょうか。
大丈夫ありがとうありがとうバイバイ
他にも聞きたいことはありますか？
柿谷選手柿谷分からへんの
柿谷選手の不服ですね。
すげえやっぱさすが
柿谷選手の不服でしたら、あちらにあります。
そう
そこまで案内しましょうか。それでは案内いたします。僕についてきてください。
Quite enjoy using this kind of friendly service here from and people and products.
わかるタコちゃんでいいかな好きな選手誰
到着しました。
どこ誰のこと言ってるんですか誰のこと言ってんのめっちゃ可愛い
この辺りにあります。
ありがとう
また何かあったら声をかけてくださいね。他にありますか？
But by roaming around, actually robot is monitoring the environment. And when problem happen, it starts providing admonishment. In this case, under this COVID situation, robot ask people to wear mask, particularly when there are people who is not wearing. Yeah, one such example.
マスクの着用へのご協力をお願いいたします。
And maybe mask is rather easy task, such as smoking a
マスクの
smartphone.
着
I
用へ
mean,
の
we saw,
お願いいたし
many
ま
of people listen to the robot. And interestingly, both shopkeeper and customer are happy about this kind of service. For customer, they prefer giving this kind of service from robot rather than human because, I mean, they feel, more comfortable. While for shop worker, they are happy because this is awful task. Often they get frustrated from customer, so they are happy if robot take over this kind of task. Okay, so let me conclude my talk. So with this kind of constructive approach, we are studying moral interaction like peer respect and peer pressure. We are seeing many positive situations about social interaction as well as moral interaction. And for this kind of, interaction research, I think real world research is very important. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Takayuki, for your wonderful presentation. I think we have just one or two short questions or comments to Takayuki. Any questions or comments? I have a short question actually, Takayuki. I think your experiment happened in Japan, shopping in Japan. Do you consider to expand your experiment to other cultural background? Other places in different cultural background as well?
Well, I mean, this is a great question. I mean, yeah, within our own resource, this might be a little bit difficult for now, but I think it's quite important. I mean, as far as I talk with other researchers, people said Japan is rather safe environment. And I mean, for example, in our team, there is a researcher from France, and they said, if we put robot in France, street or shopping mall, maybe robot will be broken in a couple of days. I don't know whether this is true or not, but I mean, I think it's so important, and I mean, of course, Korea as well. I mean, I hope to see that happen. So, I mean, I'm very happy to see collaborator if, I mean, they are happy to work with us. I'd like to do such study in near future.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we don't have more questions. So thank you, Takayuki, again for your presentation.
Thank you.
So we delayed 10 minutes, and also 8 more minutes were delayed. So I think we can start our next section at the 10:40. So in 12 minutes, 11 minutes from now.